what left, campuses have moved clearly to the left overall, to what's being taught in the classroom, or better yet, what's not being taught in the classroom. So we cover a lot of ground, and I think the message is, look, we don't know why college has become so expensive, because it is simply not delivering the results to most students that would come with such a sticker price.
Can I play devil's advocate for just a moment?
Of course.
I know what Mike Rowe talks about, and I respect Mike Rowe. And he goes, "Hey, listen, trade schools are great. You can make just as much money in many cases by learning a trade, and certainly craftsmen and tradesmen are in short supply right now because my generation of Gen Xers, our parents told us we all have to go to college. You can go find yourself a college, but when I was a kid, honestly, college wasn't out there for us. I came from blue collar roots. The most maybe you would go for a couple years to a junior college, then we're going to go work in the ag industry. I found myself not prepared for college, and then when I got there, I was just kind of lost. I ended up working in radio, dropped out, never got my degree. But now, if I look for jobs, there's times where people will say, college degree required. There were jobs I went and looked for that I was overqualified for, and I couldn't get past the AI robot because I didn't have a college degree completed. So, what really is the value of that education?
Well, I think for the generations of Gen X, millennials, even coming out of the baby boom, that it was true that if you had a college degree, you were more likely to earn more over your lifetime than your peers. Things have changed today, right? And part of that's because the price of college has gone up faster than just about any other consumer service. The only thing that's even close is healthcare. And so you have students going to college today, taking out significant debt in many cases, and then earning degrees that don't automatically lead to a job that's going to help you to pay back those pretty significant loans. So
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Because I hear that a lot. Is that overstated? Because is it conservative talk radio? Oh, all these kids get underwater basket weaving degrees, or is it really something where kids have these crazy made up majors or this pie in the sky? I'm going to go to the University of Southern California, be $200,000 in debt, and go get a teaching job that pays $35,000 a year, and I never get out from underneath that.
There's a lot of that. I mean, look, in our book, we have professors from Princeton, Professor Katz, Professor Gold, who write about what's going on even in Ivy League institutions. The requirements are simply not high enough, right? You don't have, say, comprehensive exams, especially coming out of the humanities. You don't have a requirement that students take summative tests at the end of some of their courses. You can see this in the news recently. Harvard's even now limiting the number of A's that they're giving out because of grade inflation. So even at the highest level, right, even in the most competitive schools, there's evidence that students are simply not being challenged enough with what they're being taught.
Then I look at the bureaucracy of all of this. So just full disclosure for you. Before I jumped into news talk, I was in sports, and I was on college campuses all the time covering college football, college basketball. And I just saw the bureaucratic mess. I look at how they're ruining college sports, and these men of letters, these learned men, have driven it into the ground. I saw what they do on a daily basis being on campuses, how the bureaucracy, and I don't want to, it's almost like the Politburo of a lot of these universities will just run over kids' student rights, whether it's free speech or anything else. And they force them to take these classes that have nothing to do with their major. It's only because of the bureaucracy.
Yeah, and that's been true really for years. And what we found in our book is the best example, of course, are these diversity, equity, and inclusion offices on campuses, right? They don't teach classes. They don't have degree programs usually that go with it. I mean, typically these are administrators who sit on hiring committees and make sure that hiring committees consider race in the application process. They advocate for racial preferences in student admissions. And so they're twisting civil rights law so that universities become places that frankly are not abiding by either what state civil rights laws or the federal government, federal civil rights laws require. And that is why the Trump administration has stepped in, because university trustees haven't righted the ship. State lawmakers in only some states have really taken steps to enforce this. Fortunately, you can see states like Florida, Iowa, Texas, Idaho. There are some states where lawmakers have stepped in to protect civil rights. But the federal government has had to come in and say, we're going to withhold your federal money if you don't abide by the law.
The third one, and this is the one that I think hits parents the hardest. You raise your kids a certain way with certain values, certain standards. You see them come back, and maybe your daughter comes back with green hair and a tattoo on her forearm. Your son comes back wearing a beanie cap, telling you how bougie you are and what horrible people you are, and they come back completely indoctrinated. I've seen this over and over and over again with friends of mine whose kids have gone off to school and they're like, I don't even know who these kids are. Now, I'll tell you, for my son, he's 25 years old. He's got 3 different colleges. He'll finish this year at the University of Arizona. He tells me about it. The students are so indoctrinated. He goes, I can just debate with the professors, and I walk in and I tell the professor, hey, listen, I'm conservative. Just want to make sure that you're going to be able to listen to my point of view. He said, professors aren't the problem for the most part. Maybe 10% of the professors will grade him down for what he believes. He says it's the kids afterwards that he's been accosted, he's been screamed at, yelled at, cursed at as they walk out of class by these little communistas.
Yeah, and I wrote about this in my first book called Splintered: Critical Race Theory and the Progressive War on Truth. If you watch YouTube videos of the shoutdowns that occurred on campus, especially between about 2015 and 2020, students were using the same words and phrases that you hear out of critical race theory textbooks, right? I mean, this is the same kind of communist claptrap, and there is a connection here, right? I mean, the Marxists who came out of Germany in the 1920s, they tried to rejuvenate Marxism by applying it to culture. They wound up in the university system, especially in law schools, but now it's certainly not limited to law schools. And they developed what we became known as critical race theory. That is what helped inspire the 1619 Project from the New York Times, if people remember that, from 2019,
right,
that said that America's history is all based on racism. There's no redemption at all. And so, again, on college campuses now, students are just regurgitating what they're being taught out of K-12 and even in college, with these radical ideas on race and slavery being the reasoning behind every political and cultural movement in society.
So if I've got families that are listening right now and their kids are graduating from high school and they're all excited because they've got their UVA sweatshirt or their William and Mary sweatshirt and they've worked real hard and they've graduated with a 4.25 and perfect SATs, and they're getting ready to send their kids off, how important is it they read this book, and what advice would you have to give them so they get back something close to what they're sending off to some of these campuses?
Well, fortunately, there is hope. I mean, there are, we'll call them beachheads, academic beachheads on colleges around the U.S. Some of it started at Princeton with the James Madison Institute there, founded by Robbie George. There have been other of these beachheads at places like Arizona State, even Ohio State. Down at Florida State, they have these offices that teach civics, that focus on free speech, that are really interested in helping students pursue truth. You can find these, some people call them oases of excellence. You can find these on campuses around the country. Actually, we identify them on our website. It's called Choosing College with Confidence. It's available at heritage.org. So there's hope there. And then I think the new universities that are being built, from the University of Austin to Ralston College University that now has a master's program, Thales College in North Carolina. There are these examples of places that actually will help students pursue truth, to not be simply cowed into the progressive mindset. And what's fascinating is that these schools actually create a job market for conservative academics, which is a pretty new thing in higher education.
I would say that if you just continue to communicate with your kid when they go off to school, you have an opportunity. I'll share with this real quick. We're over on time, but I'll share this quick story with you. My son was taking a class on narco-terrorism in South America, and the teacher just came out and said, I'm a Marxist, and would lecture. Then they'd have the discussion. And of course, my kid, apple doesn't fall far from the tree, would sit there and argue and debate with the teacher. And there's one point where it got really heated, and she demanded that he give her specifics and cite his sources, and he just knew them off the top of his head. Pretty remarkable kid. Had all of them lined up, completely destroyed her, in the conversation, she got mad, started crying, left the classroom. Other kids walked up to him and said, listen, thank you so much. I didn't have the guts to take her on because last time I argued with her, she completely ran circles around me. Thank you for standing up to me. He had one guy who said, listen, I'm a returning veteran. I have to sit here and listen to this nonsense. I didn't have the guts to stand up and talk to her and speak up the way you did. So thank you. And he had another kid who's like, I'm calling my dad right now to tell him what you did. There's kids out there that are willing to stand up, but it's really hard when you do it when you're by yourself and you don't think there's anybody else around you.
You're certainly right. And look, surveys of students find that conservative students are often intimidated and afraid to speak their mind in class. So we've got to change that. That's a cultural problem on campuses, and university leadership needs to step in and change that.
Absolutely. The book is called Higher Education America. It's worse than you think. I'm not saying don't send your kid to college, but do it with open eyes. Talk to them, communicate with them. When they go off, it's a whole new world that they've never experienced. They're on their own. They don't know what's going on. They will find somebody to fill that void from their family because they're off on their own for the very first time many places. They have to be careful who they align themselves with. And if you're not careful, you might send a kid who had a 4.25 when you send them to private school. They come back with a green hair, and you never know what you're going to get back. So it's important to communicate. And I think this book is very important for parents. I appreciate time. Can we do this again? Because there's a bunch of questions I didn't get a chance to get to.
Yes, glad to come on anytime. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Jonathan Butcher joining us right now. Heritage Foundation. The book is called Higher Education America. It's worse than you think. I want to open up the phone lines for you. I would like to know, does anybody else experience the same thing that I've been talking about this morning? Did you say